we all know about Notion, but what you don't know is how they actually use the same framework that I'm using for my software clients to reach 250 million in annually recurring revenue. So this video is going to be basically me breaking down on how Notion makes this money that they make just by using the same framework that I also apply for software products. And this video is going to be very in depth. I'm not going to be talking about some theoretical bullshit. This video is going to be very technical, some actionable things that you can actually take from, learn from Notion, and also apply it to your own product. All right, so this is already a proof of concept on the framework that I'm sharing you works because Notion is using the exact same framework like I said. Now, and to be fair, we all of us already know who Notion is. But before we actually get deep into this video, what is Notion actually? To put it simply in one sentence, Notion it is an all-in-one productivity software designed for multiple tools such as your notes, your documents, your databases, your CRM, even your finance tracker. Notion is basically this whole entire productivity software that holds a lot of this stuff. How they make 250 million annual recurring revenue is by these four phase framework processes. I'm gonna be breaking. I mean, it's not that complex to be fair. If I were to actually break it down into these four simple processes, number one is diagnosis. Now, firstly, I'm gonna be talking about the bottlenecks that you can learn from Notion, and I'll also be talking about the bottlenecks that they prevent, whereas the competitors are making this bottleneck. So Notion are improvising, you can also learn from that. Then secondly, I'm also going to be identifying the Notion's aha moment, which is the value of the product. To be more specific, to elaborate more, the aha moment is basically the moment in the product where a user realizes that, oh shit, this feature or this product actually solves my problem, and they are experiencing real value from your product. And we're going to be breaking down how Notion does it. Phase two is the activation engine. This is where we're going to be breaking down how Notion shortens their first time to value. And this is the definition of TTV, time to value, which is the time from your sign up to when users experience real benefit. Now, phase three is retention and habit forming. This is the breakdown where we discover how Notion gets their users to be in their habit loops. And habit loops are basically a process where you're making your users come back to your product daily, which is, I mean, that's where retention comes from. And finally, phase four is optimization upgrades, optimize upgrades, whatever. This is where we break down how Notion does their triggered expansion moments, which is basically the part where they convert free users into paid users and how they make this fucking 8 figures of ARR, a huge amount of fucking money. Now, I really just want to emphasize on this again before I get very deep into this breakdown video. This is not really just about design or UI breakdown. It's way more deeper than that. Okay, this video is about user empathy. That basically means that we're gonna be seeing things from a user's perspective. This is also gonna be about behavioral psychology, UI and UX judgment, of course, and funnel analysis. So again, like I said, this is no theory, no fucking wishy-washy theoretical stuff. This is gonna be very technical and very in depth. So take out your notepad, take some notes watching this video, I guess. The first process is the onboarding, of course. This is the first bottleneck that products make. Not necessarily Notion. I've just seen some clients that I work with before working with them, I guess, tend to make up this mistake, which is sign up friction. I want you to understand one thing, especially at the start of signing up. This is the process where you want it to be as smooth as possible, which means you don't want to have any hiccups, you don't want to have any friction in your sign up. Remember, this is the first impression of your product. So the mistake that people or founders or builders do is that when users are about to create a new account, you would only have this option of putting your custom or manually typing your emails. Whereas, for example, Notion, or even I would say big enterprises or big AI, big enterprise software tools, they tend to have this a whole plethora of options where you can sign in with your Google account, your Apple account for those who are using Mac, your Outlook account or Microsoft account, things like this. And along they would also have like your work email, or you can maybe type in your custom ad. Now this is very very important because I understand that as humans we're too fucking lazy to manually type in our email. Why the fuck would I want to do that when I could just automatically just get into my Google account? I don't have to put in my password and then I'm in your product right away. No hiccups, no friction whatsoever. It's just very quick. And again, I really want to emphasize on this, that this is the first bottleneck that products tend to make, is that this is literally when users get into the door of your house. So why are you putting any more roadblocks for them to get into the house? You want it to be as simple as possible. So it's very important for you to have these options of making it, allowing users to automatically sign up to their Google account, their Apple account, their Microsoft account. So email setup, automatic email setup is very very important. I'm just gonna put an asterisk there to sign importance, I guess. Now this is where we get into the first page of the onboarding. You would see Notion has three options on how you would want to customize your Notion account or your Notion experience. First one being for work. These tend to be like B2B guys, like fuck, that's supposed to be a two. Come on, B2B. Like people like me, founders to founder, businesses to businesses, or maybe employees or teams tend to go for work. This is where you track your progress, meeting notes, whatever project management you want to go for. These tend to be for corporate guys or entrepreneurs. For personal life, tend to be, for regular people who want to, let's say, manage your personal finance. If you want to track your itineraries for travels, fitness tracker, things like that. For school, it's self-explanatory. This one tend to be for, for students, people who want to do research, tasks, keep notes, etc. Right? Now let's go through the first one, which is for work. If you're to select for work, you would be prompted to the next page, which is the team collaborations. And again, work option tend to be those who are team members, project managers, and entrepreneurs. And this is also a good way to get more people to use Notion, right? Because they anticipate people who pick the work option and assume that they have a team. So what this does is they're basically letting more of your people, the users, colleagues, to use the product, where because you can add people's email and then they're using Notion. So this is actually a very smart way for Notion to get people to use more of their product. It's for them to, do team collaboration and start your own team in Notion. Now, followed by that is the paywall. The paywall, again, these tend to be for enterprises and entrepreneurs. And by Notion putting this paywall, it is actually a smart targeting of the right ICP. The people who would see this paywall right away in the onboarding process tend to be entrepreneurs, corporate guys, teams, which is why you have the business option here. And I really want to emphasize one thing, that you got to be careful with who you're targeting. I want you to remember this rule of thumb, that wrong targeting of the wrong ICP can make people drop off, especially when they see the money dollar sign. That's kind of a buzzword that people don't like to see. Imagine this. Imagine if, people who just really want to use Notion for their travel itineraries, or even worse, students, college students who are in depth, they don't really have the capital to invest in paying Notion. They would get turned off. They would churn because they would think that, oh, I have to spend money, even though if they have a free plan or a free trial of $30, the moment they see this, the dollar sign, it's kind of a buzzword that I don't want to spend any money. So, which is why I'm saying that the wrong targeting can make people drop off. And that's why Notion actually strategically puts this paywall right after team collaboration, only for entrepreneurs, only for corporate guys to see this. So this is something that you can learn from Notion, that this is a good placement of the paywall. But however, of course, things are not perfect. The problem with putting the paywall right in the onboarding, because bear in mind, couple pages back, we're literally just on the sign up page. And then just 3 pages in, we're on the paywall. The problem of putting a paywall that quickly or that early into the onboarding process is that It adds friction before a value moment. Wrong timing because user hasn't seen any value yet. It is more likely that businesses would invest into the business plan, but at the same time, Notion hasn't owned them anything yet. Notion hasn't really given the users enough value to make them pay for the business plan. So the alternative of this is to show the paywall right after the first value is met, which is something that we're gonna get into way deeper on. Now, then you are prompted to the CTA to the desktop app. And this is also the page where if let's say you were to choose the personal life or the school option, you would be straight away prompted to this, the CTA to the desktop option. This is the last process of the onboarding process, but why has Notion put this page before you getting into the UI itself? It says here that Notion is 50 times faster with the desktop app. Sure, like it could be true, it could be partially true, but the real reason why Notion puts this CTA to the Notion app is because of lowering their churn rate. This is the main reason why they actually want people to get into the desktop app. And the deeper reason behind that is because when a user were to get into a desktop app of your software, it creates psychological commitment. Meaning to say that when people download your app, there's no distraction of other tabs unlike on a web browser, right? Because if let's say people use your product on a web browser, they tend to get distracted by other tabs. So the engagement to your product isn't that strong. And when people are installing app, the psychological effect is that they would think to themselves, I'm more serious about this because I've already downloaded your app. So overall, it creates high engagement when people get into your desktop app. And with high engagement, then which means that users would open Notion more frequently, which creates habit formation, a very, very important thing for activation and retention. Now, that brings me to the question of would I recommend you doing this? Would I recommend you if you really have an app, to put a CTA to your app at the end of your onboarding process? Really depends on your situation, because if let's say you have an engagement problem, meaning that users sign up but they don't return, then sure, yes, go ahead. You'd want your users to engage as much as your product as possible. But on the other hand, let's say you have an activation problem, which means that user would get into your onboarding process but they did not manage to reach the value of your product, then I do not recommend you having a CTA to your desktop app. You gotta fix activation first. So now moving on from, by the way, this is already the end of the onboarding process, by the way. I really just wanna, elaborate on that. This video is gonna be a long one basically. So right after that, you will be greeted straight away into the UI of Notion. Welcome to the Get Started page. This is the guidance towards the value. We're not yet to the first value of the product. So far, we have already went through phase one, which is diagnosis. We have find the bottlenecks that Notion does, and we're onwards to the second part of phase one, which is identifying the aha moment. One thing I like about Notion is that they walk the walk and talk the talk, meaning to say that they are actually using the features you see here as a way to educate you, as a way of teaching you how to use that product. For example, let's go through the feature number two, which is the slash shortcut. As you can see here, they're basically teaching you how to use the feature whilst making you using the feature at the same time. Not many product does this, but if you have any congruency on how Notion does this in a way that you can use your features to educate them to use that feature, then props to you. Do that. That is way more effective than you having fucking tutorials or any pop-up education videos. And another feature they have is this toggle feature where basically you can basically open this triangle option to expand or collapse sections so you can hide details until you need them. This keeps your page clean and organized. As someone who use Notion, this is a very, very useful tool. And again, right here in the Get Started page, Notion is teaching you how to actually use this. Same thing with, of course, you cannot forget about the checklist, the to-do checklist. So overall, just in this one page of the get started page, they have three features that they are teaching you on how to use the features by letting you using the feature, right? So this brings me to the fourth feature that they have, which is the dash page to add a new page. Now, this is where I would say is where the time to value has been met. Is when you create a new custom page. Reason being is because remember the time to value is basically the moment where a user experiences real tangible benefit of the product and thinks that this solves my problem. Now you might be wondering, why is this blank canvas of just just putting dash page is the time to value, is the first time to value. I'll explain to you why. One of Notion's biggest feature is for you to create a new page and for you to just customize it. For example, which is why when you ever create a new page, you have options such as ask AI to write whatever page you want, create databases or templates, which is where this is the first aha moment of Notion because you have multiple paths to value. For example, you can, like I said, use AI to create a page for whatever you desire. Right here, you can basically ask AI to drive anything by using Notion's AI tool, or you can add a database or a table sheet, or completely start a new one where you can use Notion's template to start a database for whatever projects or whatever sessions that you have. And same thing with templates. I feel like this one is the biggest use case when when users were to actually create a new page and use Notion's ready to use templates, because if you to actually try it, Notions have a plethora amount of templates where you can use, which is why this is the biggest use case. And once a user were to create the new page, this is where you can, or I guess Notion can basically show the people right after the value or the page is created, because the value has already been made, right? This value of creating a new page has already been created. Let's talk about what could be better to reduce friction in this UX. This is also something that you can learn if, let's say, you have something that's very similar to Notion, or even, okay, what I'm about to explain to you sounds, it may seem quite small, quite insignificant, but it is the small feature that compounds and that actually matters. You will notice that if a user were to create a new page, it will literally say here as the title card, new page. But instead of naming the light gray text box new page, it is way more effective to prompt it as name page instead. Reason being is because if you're to say new page, users may get confused. And reason being is because when, let's say, right, let's say you're a completely new, fresh user who has no knowledge on how to use Notion. This new page blank canvas can may seem overwhelming to you. So for a user to get into the habit, get them some momentum, it's way better for you to say name page instead. Give them a call to action to name this page instead of just labeling new page. Because I want you to understand about small moment. Basically, it's like the snowball effect, right? You get them to do one thing, and then after a while, they do one small thing, then the next small thing, then so on and so on. It creates momentum. Same thing with Notion should basically have a light gray tag saying start typing your first note on a blank canvas. So right below this title card, right, they should do this same thing but just in a small font of insert your first text right here. The same reason with the title card, again, momentum, because once they name the page, then they can start to type in their first whatever note. Doesn't matter what it is, but the point is that you just want them to get some momentum going. You want them to have action, for them to not really think that much, and for them to just use your product. Get Make them hands on, make them blue collar. So now we have already met Notion's first aha moment, value moment, and also pay attention to that time to value was met roughly between around 3 to 6 minutes, directly all the way from sign up right here. Of course, I don't know exactly how long it takes an average user, but I would assume from from my standpoint, it would take around 3 to 6 minutes for them to get the first time to value. So this is again something that you can learn from Notion. Please don't make your time to value too long. You'd want to make it as short as possible. Maybe couple pages. I don't know, like look at how many pages a Notion has for them to get to the time to value. Like one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 6, 7 pages. Now going back to the get started page, let's pay attention to the left side of the UI, which is the sidebar. Now this sidebar is a feature that's gonna be utilized 90% of the time by users. And this is a bottleneck that Notion has. Look at how many things are there in the side dashboard. This may seem quite overwhelming to a new user, especially since you have this admin logistics side, and then you have this the pages, which is the necessary part. This is the ones that you keep, I guess, um the default page, the get started and to-do list, and your team space. This one is a bottleneck, I would say. First of all, we have the Notion apps. Now, I do get that Notion, of course, wants to promote three of their products, but if I'm being honest, who the fuck uses any of these apps? Notion Calendar, I try using it, shit. Notion Desktop, I guess you can put it somewhere else. You can make it into a hidden toggle. Notion Mail, nobody uses this, right? Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Notion could have basically just tidied this up and make it into a toggle, into a collapse toggle. Same thing with the settings template and trash. They can basically either shift this upwards into the admin side or make it collapsible. Especially when it comes to like the setting, I feel like this setting can basically belong into one of these groups, right, of the admin side. So that's just like the bottleneck that Notion has, I guess. It's too messy, too overwhelming. I know it's ironic because my drawing is kind of messy right now, but you get the gist, right? And now moving forward, Notion has another page called the to-do list, which is right here. And I call this the second aha moment. A default to-do list page to show users how to use more of the features. And this is also another thing that Notion does well, is that they have a clever display of show, don't tell technique. Instead of telling your users how to use that feature via a product or a pop-up tooltip, give them tangible examples on how it's done, like this to-do list. I noticed that Notion rarely gets their user on some fucking tutorial on how to use their users, because what are they doing? They're showing, they're not telling their users how to use it. So again, this is a technique proven by Notion that you can use. And the benefit of the show don't tell technique is that it encourages your users to create their own feature. In Notion's case, is the to-do list. Now this brings us to phase 3. If you're still watching this video and you're taking notes, give yourself a round of applause. Yeah, give yourself a round of applause, right? You're getting there, right? If you manage to actually actually listen to this whole entire breakdown and actually apply it into your product, holy shit, you're gonna destroy your fucking opponents, right? And now moving on to phase 3, the retention and habit formation. Question: how does Notion, since now that we have already gotten through their aha moment, we have seen how they actually get users to use that feature, how does Notion make their users come back to use their product daily? By these three things. Number one is trigger. The things that reminds users to open Notion. What are they? The third thing on how they form habits and form retention for by users is action. What do users do when they return? When they get the trigger, what do they do? And thirdly is reward. What gratifications keep them coming back for more? You gotta treat them like fucking dogs, like training them like dogs to keep on coming back. Give them instant gratification. Example is this task tracker provided by the Notion's database templates. And in case if you're wondering, new users could basically just find this feature, this page created by Notion right here. It's this one. A default template provided by Notion, right? It's this one, which you can find when you open this database tab. And if you're wondering, this is how the UI of the task tracker looks like. As you can see, this is where you name your task. You got the status. This is where you can invite people, set people on tasks, the due dates. What I like about Notion is that if you have a project that's very close to the due date, it would actually the font will turn red, and they have this alarm emoji right beside it to seek agency, which is again the small things you gotta pay attention to. Like this, small things actually plays a part in the user psychology. Priority, again, this is to seek agency from the people using this tool. Task type, this is for organization, and description is self-explanatory. By task, again, this is for the sake of organization of basically saying what tasks are not done in progress and the tasks that are completed. And we have this my task tab. You can imagine if you and your team are using this task tracker and it's stacked up with bunch of tasks, you can get overwhelmed, which is why having a separated of people's tasks and having your own personal tab with your task in it brings less anxiety and more clarity to your mind. Now, let's break down the habit loop, shall we? Firstly is the trigger. What makes users come back? Users using this feature were to have the urge to see and check what's due today, or if they forgot anything end of day, what's their next task, clear up any anxiety or guilt over any deadlines that they have, and see the progress of their peers or their own personal progress. These are also what you call psychological triggers, because it makes users bound to come back to your page. Again, I want you to think like your users. This whole entire task is designed for users to come back just by the nature of this feature. So that is the first trigger, is that any of your feature, I want you to really look at it. If you can bring any psychological trigger to your product, like how Notion does in this feature, and in this example right here, in these bullet points, then your product is gonna be very sticky. The second thing is actions. What do users do once they get these psychological triggers to come back to your product? The primary actions are to add new tasks, to update status if it's not started or in progress, to filter my tasks and focus on personal work aside from your peers, to check due dates, and to assign tasks to teammates. I also want you to pay attention that notice how when I was showing you the UX, there's so little friction in this tool. You see here, it's actually very clean. I mean, did I have to watch any tools, any tutorials on how to use this feature? No, I can figure everything out on my own. There's this famous saying by Leonardo da Vinci, or is it DiCaprio? No, I'm pretty sure it's Da Vinci, that says simplicity is the, wait, no, what is it? Okay, simplicity is the ultimate form of certification or some shit like that. Okay, keep it simple. Simplicity scales, complexity fails. And the last habit breakdown is reward. What feels good when they return back is immediate gratification. When a user were to complete a task and change the status to done, it brings some dopamine hit for them. And when they see the list being organized, it brings satisfaction, because it shows that the users, I'm in control of shit, you know. And if they were to see that my task tab view is cleared up, they feel a sense of fulfillment, a sense of accomplishment, that they fulfill their duty. And when they feel accomplishment, it reduces, fuck, okay, it's getting messy here. It reduces anxiety because they have nothing forgotten. And from the UI standpoint, this is something that you can learn from Notion, is that if you have a feature similar to a checklist or some shit like that, using green to mark as a task being completed shows visual progress. And again, this brings dopamine hit right here. Green equals dopamine hit. I want you to remember that. Something about colors, stuff like color theory. And same thing about when, if a user were to put a task to in progress to done, it shows momentum. And when they have momentum, they want to use your product more. This is something similar that I said about my task being empty. And now this is where we get into phase 4, which is how Notion finally makes money from their users. Optimize upgrades. When and how does Notion convince their free users to pay? This is the process where they make the most amount of their money. This is the free plan that you see, And notice how in the paywall that I showed you earlier, they do have a plus plan, but I mean, everyone and their mother of builders are doing this is that when you're showing a paywall, you would just skip the plan in between the premium and the free, and you would just way rather get people to pay for your business plan straight away. I mean, everyone and their mom are doing this. There's no reason for you to not do this if you haven't done it yet. Now, the upgrade triggers. When does Notion ask for your money? There's two way how they go about this: feature-based triggers and usage limit triggers. I would break down the feature-based trigger first. Is that Notion has an AI tool called Notion AI, which is something that you can unlock when you get the business plan. And the value proposition of Notion AI is because it firstly AI, you can like basically automate a lot of your tasks, a lot of your I mean, I don't have to explain what AI does, right? You use Claude, you use Grok, you use ChatGPT, you know what AI can do. But other than the whole generative AI of organizing some shit, writing for you, being your copywriter, being your AI agent, no, specifically Notion AI allows users to integrate it with other platforms like this tool called Notion AI connectors, which basically allows you to connect platforms like Slack, Google Drive, etc. Like a lot of these platforms that you see here to get info from these platforms and use it for Notion AI. That basically means is that you can basically connect AI to your Slack account, your Google Drive account, and if you ever wanna extract any information from these platforms that you're already using, you can basically just bring it over to Notion by using Notion AI connectors. I've never really seen any other software in general, AI software, actually having this tool, but yeah, that's actually really fucking cool. And I feel like Notion does an incredible job at actually marketing this part of the feature, I guess. I also want to emphasize something about Notion AI is that it's hard for you to miss this feature because since all you have to do is to basically just click space in whatever page that you're in to use Notion AI. This is also a good way for Notion to force users to use this feature. But although on the other hand, I do had some critics from other users, myself included, where they find it annoying when they accidentally open Notion AI by accident because they click on the space button twice or some shit like that. And this is basically the CTA if you wanna pay for Notion AI. And the people who tend to pay for Notion AI are those who have already tried using AI. Again, I do still want to emphasize on the effect of letting users use your feature first and then getting to the paywall. That is way more effective than you just putting the paywall right away and then getting them pay. It's way easier for you to close them basically. Then this brings me, so okay, we have already went through the feature-based trigger, which is Notion AI. This is the first way on how Notion gets people to pay for that product. Secondly is the usage limit triggers. I would say this one is more common for a user to pay for Notion. And in case if you're wondering what are usage limit triggers, I'll basically explain to you tangibly. The first one being the block limit. This one is the primary usage trigger because the free plan, if you to choose the free option plan of Notion, only has 1,000 blocks per workspace. And in case if you're wondering what blocks are, these are examples. Every text box in Notion equals to one block. Block. Every image equals to one block, every headline equals to one block, and every database row equals to one block. Basically, the key thing here is that every piece of content in your workspace equals to one block, and the free plan has 1,000 blocks. So, meaning that once you go bypass the limit of 1,000, you would be prompted to the CTA of the upgrade plan. The second limit is the AI usage. Now, I've kind of already went through Notion AI, but basically to explain how the trigger works is the free plan only Notion only allows you to use Notion AI only for limited responses. And maybe after a user uses AI like 10 to 20 times, I don't exactly know because I didn't keep track. This is when you hit the limit. This is when the trigger happens. And if you're to get a paid plan, you basically get unlimited AI usage. This is also what I call the Colombian cartel drug dealer model. Is that you're letting user basically experience small doses of your product, right? Basically like a drug dealer. Give them free samples of your drug, and then once they get hooked to it, once they get familiar to use your feature, then you charge them. Bang, got your ass. Now you're hooked to my shit. Now moving on is the file upload limit. The free plan of Notion, sure, they do allow you to unlimitedly upload files, but each file must be below 5 megabytes. And this is how it looks like, is that when you try to upload a file bigger than 5 megabyte, it basically asks you to upgrade to the plus plan. Lastly is the guest and collaboration limit. Now, in the free plan of Notion, you can invite unlimited viewers, but these people can only read your workspace. And you can only invite up to 10 guests with edit permissions. These tend to be a bottleneck for bigger teams, for enterprises, because they have employees more than 10 people. This trigger happens when, let's say a small team grows beyond 10 people, and if they try to invite a 11 editor into the workspace, Notion will ask you to upgrade to your business plan, and they will bring you to the upgrade plan call to action. And if you're to get the paid plan, you can basically bring in as many unlimited guests with full permission. Now, I do wanna, I mean, you see the arrow, so you get the gist that all of this trigger or all of this limit, once you reach the limit, you're being prompted to this upgrade plan call to action. Upgrade to the business plan. And this is how Notion gets their users to pay monthly for the tool right here, $24 per month. Do you see? Do you understand? First, they get people to use the feature for free, but they have a limit, right? They don't want you to abuse the system, so they have this limit, right? They have this usage limit that once you try to use it more, no, 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 no. You have to pay for it now. Maybe I should have an emphasis to say that this is what you call the drug dealer model. Once you give them a free sample, scrap, make them pay. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, these are the 4 framework processes of how Notion uses the same framework that I use for software clients to allow them to reach 250 million in annual recurring revenue. If you find any of this video informative, and you have find any of this part of the processes, the phases very useful, and you're gonna apply it to your own product, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and if you want to apply the same framework just like Notion and make a shit ton money in your product, you can book a call with me on Calendly and we'll see how it works.